Well, Soniqs. All right, we've seen the team huddle. Soniqs took down Wolves on hit for 6. Can they do it on the actual map that we're going to be looking at? Can they do it on the server? There we go. That's a better wording. I'm Jeannie, joined once again by Anne and Jesse. Let's just dive straight into this one because it feels like both of these teams have had a miracle run. You come through LCQ, you get into phase 1, and you just hit the ground running.
Yeah, Wolves coming off a hot 7-0 over North America. I think this one's going to be a little bit tougher for them. I'm hoping, at least. The Soniqs coming through here as well. As you mentioned, both these teams, last chance qualifier squads, both of them had really rough stage 1s. Wolves especially did not do well in EUL. No, but I mean, it's the storyline, right? They overcame that. They really put in the work between stage 1 ending, LCQ coming through. They've both done fantastic since then. Of course, only dropping 1 game so far here in Swiss means now that they play a best of 1 to make it to the finals. And yeah, this should be a fun game.
Yeah, when we're looking at Soniqs as well, they've really leveled up. I mean, from their NAL up until what we're seeing today, it's been really a treat seeing how they've been playing, but it does feel like yesterday specifically, and it was maybe a little clutch reliant.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they did have a really, really difficult game ahead of themselves. So W7M, and to be fair, they were the one opponent that really gave a struggle to W7M, that came the closest to actually beating them, took them to overtime. But yeah, if you have that game being so close, and Gunnar is the only player with a positive rating on the side of Soniqs, you kind of expect more from that. The survival rate not being too high either on the side of those players, indicating that it could be indeed a bit clutch reliant. Yeah, it came down to a clutch 2 times in that game. And you have this really strong front line on the side of Soniqs, but you need those players to step up around the side of Gunnar because we all know he's been down to a more passive role. You need those frontline players around him to step up and really win their gunfights.
Okay, well, we have the map feed already as well, so we know at least where we're going to be going. It's not going to be hit for 6. It's going to be Bank instead.
All right.
I know why you're reacting that way because Bank and NAL and Soniqs, just they weren't best friends.
This is Soniqs permaban. They're rocking out with Bank. They haven't played it since stage 3 last year when they went 0 for 2 across 2 matches. This is gonna be a bit of a curveball going the way of Wolves. For Wolves on their hand, I mean, it was a good map for them last year. They played it quite often. They got a lot of wins. This year, 1 play, 8-6 loss to Team Secret. Not exactly a fantastic record coming through there. So Soniqs, a bit of a curveball. This could be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that game that you mentioned was very early on in the EUL where they were still struggling with that new player on the roster. But then again, if you look at, their preference on the side of Wolves, it isn't really the highest preference for themselves either. It's more so on towards that mid-level. Surprised we're not seeing a Chalet because it's a pretty good map for both teams. I would have liked to see that too as our battleground. But we're going to Bank, and if you think about Wolves, they had that full turnaround in their game where they were able to persevere. You heard it in the interview, said we're just going to play our game, we're going to hold onto our power positions, we're going to do our things, and then we'll be fine. So if they keep that mindset up today, I feel like they might have a really good chance.
Okay, well, let's see what the casters feel about it because we have Lynx and Blue ready. Lynx, I know you're very happy about seeing Bank.
Lucky, see, some of you might think that this Bank pick is like a little out of left field, but lucky for you, I like crazy. I like the curveball.
I wonder why.
I think Soniqs are cooking, and I'm afraid that Wolves let them cook a little too hard.
All right, Blue, how are you feeling about this one? I want to get your thoughts and opinions.
Oh, we're gonna have to see. There's a few other wrinkles of this matchup, especially for the Soniqs that we'll have to talk about in a second. That could potentially throw it the other way, so we're gonna have to wait and see.
Ooh, okay, well, I'm gonna let you guys do your thing, talk about it, analyze it a little further. Good luck out there.
All right, well, thank you very much. Not going to be analyzing it too hard, though, as it is just about time, ladies and gentlemen, to jump into our second matchup of the day, rolling right through the high best-of-1 matches here, trying to qualify a few more of our teams into the playoffs. And this will be one of those matches that the Soniqs or the Wolves will move through from this game onto our playoff stage. Time to see, of course, which one will take it as we go to Bank, which is a pretty spicy map.
It is.
Given the circumstances playing into it.
As Jesse mentioned, this was Soniqs permaban throughout the NAL, and I have to imagine Wolves are a very good team with a very well-respected and experienced support staff, but Soniqs throwing out their permaban, and we're not even at the main stage yet. I have to imagine that might have thrown Wolves for a little bit of a loop, but if it hasn't, they are ready for this, and they've also improved a lot from that secret performance, then this should be a barn burner between these two teams. First ban coming through, we'll see the Nook ban from Wolves. Pretty expected, especially given Citizen has played that operator quite a bit throughout the NAL and Copenhagen so far.
Hibana going to be following that one up, trying to complicate things when it comes to the hatch patchwork a little bit, as there is a lot of that on this map, alongside the nice angle work that she could also do now due to the kind of separate pellet selection that she got a little over a year ago now. Echo will follow that up onto the defensive side. Echo gets a lot of power on maps like this one and others like Cafe as well, where he can be an incredibly powerful insight late round player, so don't want to be dealing with that if you're the Soniqs, apparently. And then finally, Cade once again goes in to counter the ban that was thrown out earlier against the hatchwork that came in from Hibana. So everything making perfect sense for bank play. We do need to mention, we got a little bit of insider info before we went over here to the casting desk. Apparently, Citizen is a little under the weather, specifically with regards to his voice, which is not great given his role in the team.
It is, unfortunately, Citizen not having the full ability to calm to his team, given the fact that he is currently feeling under the weather, has lost his voice. It's going to be a problem if he's still one of the main lurkers for his team. Thankfully, he is on a roll where, especially on attack, he's playing a bit more by himself, but still could provide useful information when he maybe works himself close to the site, is hiding underneath, can maybe calm rotations. It'll be something that the Soniqs will have to deal with, especially on a map like Bank that requires a lot of control and a lot of coordination.
So hopefully that's not going to trip up the Soniqs roster all that much, but we'll make some more references to that if it becomes relevant deeper into the game itself. Wolves have chosen to go for an interesting site to start things out, not the usual suspected one downstairs in the basement, but instead we'll go for the first floor open area to start things out here, giving them that capability to roam quite heavily so, because obviously they'll be able to return to a pretty central point on the map when everything is said and done, and they do need to cull that away. So you'll see those extended setups going into areas like the upstairs main hallway here, between areas like stock as well as meeting room. You can see the angle that had been opened up in meeting room and a few other areas as well, as the Wolves will try to, more than anything, waste out the time from the Sonic, but if they're also able to, of course, only a couple kills in the early round to weaken that overall execute that the Soniqs will be committing to once we hit the null timer around about 20 seconds or so, and they'll be forced into it.
We'll start out by square. Soniqs going to need to worry about that Valkyrie and the Mozzie, the intel gained and intel denied by the defense. Of course, that Azami as well, all that utility that Wolves are bringing. Dokkaebi, one of the most banned ops at the Copenhagen Major, but it's gone unbanned in this matchup, and Citizen will bring her fairly immediately. Sometimes we'll see teams put a player on entry and then also give them Dokkaebi. It can be a very difficult position to work, so we'll see how Soniqs decide to use Citizen in this matchup. Again, they have not played Bank, I believe, since the Yongshiping Major, and they lost it to BDS. It's been their ban in the NAL, so a lot of what we're seeing today will be fresh, not only to us, but to Wolves as well. First Dokkaebi call goes out. Soniqs going with the normal strategy. See about 3 players taking that open area side and 2 players over by ATMs, trying to find some kills and apply some release pressure.
Drone there, you'll see, will get sniped out by the Mozzie on the defender's side. Should have been countered by the Soniqs themselves, though, so not going to be actively used more than likely by the Wolves. Being more than likely too busy to commit himself to moving that drone away. Anyway, it's going to be the Soniqs that score first kill of the game here as Rexon is able to successfully insert himself into stock there. Find the pick against Mowgli, with the alibi being eliminated, and he's hunting for more. He's dead shot, potentially a few other members of the Wolves as well, still in play, trying to rotate away from this one. P4 between a rock and a hard place there. It's not even Citizen that does the majority of that damage to him. It's another player roaming upstairs, trying to catch him instead. Citizen just the one that manages to finish him off, and still more members of this team are being hunted down. But finally, a little bit of a bite back from Deadshot specifically. He's able to get some revenge against Gunnar, removing the buck from play, and this is before he's really had an opportunity to open up a massive amount of those top-down angles, but he still found good contribution, as we saw earlier on, with his assist that he's able to give out there to that first kill. But if they're not still going to be missing some of that potential soft breach, hopefully they'll be able to make up for it, or just directly contend against the site, as we are now down to the final minutes, or things start to turn a little bit more into the favor of the Wolves here.
And Sonic still applying some pressure on that top floor. Deadshot has remained. He might need to find his way back through some of the SQ players. If they're able to watch this flank, it's an effective 4v2 on the site. And it looks like Geo and the rest are in prime position to move on in, but so is Deadshot.
Deadshot, once again, with a great capability to pinch out the rest of this play. Soniqs never fully clearing things out on the inside of Archives, despite such a pointed focus towards doing so. And now they haven't really been left with much of an option to complete their execute. Nitro goes up, but it's a blind one, so not going to make the impact as needed. And great execute timing coming through for Geo as well as Grixer to trade out Bibu before he can make any serious damage against this team's hold. Deadshot now needing to rotate in, but he's the only one remaining here. The Soniqs still, even with the limited time, able to successfully overwhelm the site. Deadshot's lost the plot as well for the retake, so the Soniqs are able to hold control and take the first round of this map.
Very slow execute from the Soniqs, maybe losing the plot a little bit in the mid-round, but the early and the late, that was what was decisive, and that is what made the difference. Soniqs were able to start off on the right foot by taking down Mowgli early on, the most aggressive player on the Wolves. On his team, leading entry engagements, not necessarily won or lost, but in total by a wide margin. 30, now 31 so far. But on the side of the Sonics, it's Gunnar, who's currently leading the team at 25, and Rexon, of course, getting that entry. So in the early round, Sonics have a few key players to match Wolves' aggression as well. In this case, Mowgli's the one that fell. And they middle around for a little bit, struggling to find some movement, and even get pinched out inside of Tellers, which is where we saw Citizen playing for the majority of that mid-round. But they use their utility, they still take the time to reset and to coordinate on that final clear. It ended up working out despite the loss of Tellers.
There was certainly some worry if the Sonics were going to be up to par on this map, specifically with regards to this attacking side. Having to go onto it directly at the start of the map, but a good showing from the first round. Once again, makes us believe that once again the Sonics always seem to have that pocket map or two that they can bust out at any point during big events like this. And that very well may be that map, because they haven't shown it since back at the Jönköping Major about 4 or 5 months ago now.
One thing we also should talk about, by the way, you and I like to talk about that triad, you know, the Solus, the Valkyrie, the Azami. None of it is banned in this matchup. Azami, Solus, and Valk all up. And last round we saw Wolves run a combination of Azami and Valkyrie. This time it's the Solus and the Valkyrie. And Solus as well on Bank. It's one of the maps when she was first introduced, she saw quite a bit of play, usually as a replacement for Pulse on certain sites. Now, similar thing here. Moving down to that basement, P4, of course, can roam around the map and shoot some of those drones, but also use it to find intel on anybody getting on cameras using electronics as the execute moves down to the first floor, combined with the black eye cameras, likely aiding any kind of roam, specifically on that middle floor. Wolves are really trying to use a lot of intel gathering and denial for the defense.
P4 quickly backing away from any adventurous positioning he may have been taken up over there by open area at the start of the round. He falls back down through the hatch, but there's good reason for that. The Sonics also very quickly taking some control towards the basement itself. No active defense being placed out on the inside of Garage here, so that is going to be Rexon taking full control for himself and setting up 2 of those deployable Ursa shields immediately to try and reaffirm that control. We'll be locking it in, and that'll prompt a few other members of the team to start poking downstairs as well, such as Citizen. Tries to go for a little bit of a swing down the main stairs, but does get hit with a bullet, so that'll prompt him to fall back relatively quickly. Other than that, though, pretty inactive start to the round here for the Sonics, but they are well ahead of schedule, at least as far as I'm concerned here, for their map control. So I doubt they're going to be too concerned about that one. Deadshot now being found out on the inside of open area. That will shift the focus for the Sonics. Shinka, in the meanwhile, on a completely different part of the map, going to be found out here. Nitro tosses in, but Citizen sees it coming from a mile away, so it's not too much trouble at all to back away from that one and avoid the brunt of the damage coming in from Deadshot. Now Gunnar moves forward for the pinch, but they don't have the correct position of Deadshot locked down entirely just yet. He'll get away with the first one due to that lack of intel. Gunnar goes down in response to it. That's the ace being eliminated. Thankfully, I believe all the Selma's already used to. In terms of utility, not a whole lot going to be lost there. P4 taken down. Again, the Insight players are being cleaned up without too much of a contest right now. But there we go. Citizen slaps Deadshot in the face when he tries to lurch out for a second kill. That'll leave it all on an already damaged Mowgli and Bibu in the depths of Gold Bar Vault to try and hold off the rest of this round. Bibu, of course, will be heavily limited due to the position that's being maintained by Rex that we noted a few moments ago on the inside of Garage.
Mowgli now going for the retake. Low health, though. 50 HP, somebody watching, but everyone on Sonics somewhat worse for wear. Citizen, one of them now. Geo, low HP as well. He's done a great job clearing out the site. With only 20 seconds left and hatch control reestablished by Wolves, there's still a good chance they could win this.
15 seconds left.
Mowgli, especially with the top-down angle here, could put a complete stoppage of the play when it comes to the plant. They're more than likely going to attempt to do so. Smokes are moving in, will block off his vision, but it's a quick hop down for him, and they don't have vision into the inside of that one either. Just pre-fire into the usual plant positions, gets away with that shot, and that'll do it. As the timer is unfortunately up now, the Wolves nicely played on the retake, specifically for Mowgli, doing it from the top side there, as they once again just barely recover, just as we saw the Sonics do at the end of round 1. Now it's Wolves that squeaks away with it as we go into a tied situation for round 3.
Combination of great intel denial, but also poor drone work from the Sonics. You saw Wolves, they were playing aggressively on that first floor to be sure, but they weren't really spread out on that second floor. They were very much concentrated inside of open area, and by a minute 30, Sonics were down to only 4 drones, and by a minute when they went for this clear, only 2 drones as well. There was not a lot of intel to pinpoint Deadshot's exact position, and then the Sonics players, one pushed in, but Citizen was still playing a bit far back for the trade, so even though he ends up getting the kill and they maintain that 4v2, a lot of time was spent trying to clear out Deadshot, and that allowed Mowgli to go for the retake later on, and combined with a lot of damage done to those Sonics players, Mowgli, even though it came down to the wire, had enough to deny the plant.
The 1-1 exchange that'll keep us rotating on the sites. Wolves not feeling the reattempt of open area just yet, especially with how the Sonics were able to steal away map control outside of the site relatively easily, leading up to their execute. Wolves will now go for the very risky, as it oftentimes is now for the defense, second floor hold instead here. We'll see the castle barricades try to cut away some of these angles that the attackers are going to be using, especially on the repelled side. Soniqs definitely going to be trying to bring a very execute-focused lineup to this one as well, with the Ying coming back in for Gunner, alongside of some utility mitigation themselves in the form of these Brava drones, which right now, obviously, as you can see, just going to steal away some of the default cams in lobby to prevent any aggressive peeks, especially from the inside of areas like Banana up on the second floor. Let's be a little bit cautious taking that initial map control. Soniqs have been a bit slow on the pacing side of things, so this will hopefully help to speed things up to a degree that they are comfortable with. Try and take this site away in time.
Also those Yings to worry about on the CEO repel. Usually when sometimes where we would see the Ying previously would always indicate a quick execute. Not so much anymore. It is certainly still possible. We've got 4 smoke canisters on the Soniqs. We see that Capitao. That's honestly more of an indicator of a quick execute than this right here. Soniqs might still go for this lurk. Of course, get that main lobby cam. Of course, get some flank cameras, but also try to take down some of those magnets inside of the site to make nading out players outside of stock or elevator and Canto a lot easier. And second clutch drone goes down. Unfortunately, it'll be a loss for Geo. But the smokes and Candelas already going out. It's just to bait out players from Wolves, to try to make them nervous, try to make them anxious, and hopefully get a kill on a defender rotating around the site. The execute is still a ways away.
No sign of forward momentum, though, from the Soniqs. They're a little bit stuck right now in trying to hunt out that first player or two. The focus, as you can see from the yellow pings, is on trying to mitigate some of these castle barricades and potentially open up a pathway towards the Banana players. Gunner as well, keeping his full options open. Deadshot having fully rotated back now as well. Where's the first play going to come from? Wolves have no reason to hop themselves out, trying to stop this directly themselves. So it's all in the hands of the Soniqs right now in terms of how they want to play this to start their round out. Thankfully, they'll start it well, eventually pinching out Mowgli yet again. So be the first to fall for at least the second round now inside of this game. Additional pressure will go on the Shinka, but they'll be able to return some of that onto players like Gunner. We're going to get dropped down low, but Rexon still able to control the pacing there as he turns it back on to Shinka, eliminating him. Starting the round out 2-0 here so far for the Soniqs' entry. P4 tries to go for an aggressive lurk, but that'll be cut off as well by Grixer, who's now taking that front and forward control. Finally, Bibu strikes back, but it's an immediate exchange from Citizen to lock that one down. And with the smokes once again doing their jobs well, the plant will go through, and so will the round. A very clean one from the Soniqs as they do take that attacker-sided site for themselves and lead along with it at 2-1.
Very clean, but very amazing that it worked. It seemed like Soniqs were making very little progress throughout the entirety of that round, just sitting on angles, waiting for Wolves to move. And say we will about Wolves, they play a very disciplined defense. They show that against M80. They've showed it against many of the teams they've played in the Swiss so far. But Soniqs' patience ends up paying off. The Candelas do eventually cause some players to rotate. Rexon and Grixer not even really needing them to use utility to rotate. They just sit there and eventually they catch Wolves moving. I thought maybe even the lack of grenades and no stock pressure would allow P4 to rotate up and cause some chaos in square, but Soniqs, they shut down every single potential for a comeback.
Bomb located by
Things continuing to go well for our attackers here. They'll try to continue that pacing back over towards another open area hold from the Wolves. Not going to see any dramatic change-ups to the operator selections for the Wolves going into that one either. Still having the Azami played out by Shinka. Deadshot will try to continue the rotation game, this time on the Orc, so that he can navigate between the floors a little bit more freely. As far as the Soniqs are concerned as well, things are going to look somewhat similar. I do believe the Terra drones are going to be new there for Rexon, however, just to try and clean up the insight setup a little bit more. Gives them those extra drones if they absolutely need to use them for that purpose too, to hopefully flush out a bit more of that Archives and Tellers pressure, which was the main issue when it came to Soniqs' attack on the previous round. Aside from that, though, they went off swimmingly, so I imagine they're going to repeat it in a relatively similar way.
Not the Geometrics Ash. Sheesh.
I mean, he's 3-0 to start this one out, so he's feeling it. Might as well give it to him here. Anyone who knows their Siege history knows just how dangerous of a player Geo can be when he's kind of given the reins to control his own fate. That's not a good sign for the Wolves, at least in my analysis.
Oh, no. I mean, Geo is such a clutch backline player, especially on the defense. But right now, it's Gunner on the front who's facing a lot of trouble, now cut down by Mowgli. A shift of fortunes. First time Wolves have really established that opening pick, though not the first time they've won a round, period. Mowgli able to survive on this roam a lot longer than he did last time, as he was the first one taken off the board, and now Gunner, the main soft breach, felled. The Kanto position also struggling to be opened up. It's jammed currently, so we'll need to try and destroy it somehow, but Soniqs have not really tried to use these nades. Citizen, he's got them, but he's just pushing on into the side anyway, hollowed it out completely.
Forced the issue due to them already having copy control as well, so a good combination there. There we go, the double push now comes to full bear against Mowgli, as he very easily could have won that initial duel, but no longer the case in a 2v1 peak scenario. Rexon does get dropped, but on the rotate, P4 already being found out. It'll be a great round coming in there from Geo and the rest of the Sonics, but now it is brought down to a 1v2 as Deadshot attempts to recover, quickly lost, however, as the ace is completed by Citizen. Nicely done here, as once again forces the issue onto the site and carries it through, obviously with some assistance from his teammates there, but finds every single kill on the entry to lock it down.
No voice, but he's got his fingers, and that means he can move and shoot with the best of them. The ace will demoralize Wolves, not entirely, but at least make them take a tactical timeout to try and stem the bleeding. Again, this is a best of one, folks. So Soniqs, if they close this out and they can continue and ride with the momentum, they'll be able to close this one out. Wolves need to start getting these rounds on the board, because even though Bank can trend attacker-sided, if Wolves go down 5-1, it just requires a couple clean defenses from the Soniqs. I think it's pretty apparent in this point that this map might have been a permaban in the NAL, but it was hiding in plain sight even from the Wolves' eyesight.
Obviously a pivotal point in the tournament for the Sonics, so a perfect point to try and bring this one out to quickly attempt to lock things down with regards to their playoff qualification, their final bracket qualification as well. Only so many teams can make it through to our playoff stage here on Friday. If things go against the favor of the Wolves, I believe that is going to leave them with a 2-2 record, forcing them into a best of 3 tomorrow to fight for survival, or of course, ascension if they can win it into the same position that the Sonics are looking to take here now. And at the moment, not looking like a lot can stop them, but the attack pause hopefully bringing new life into play for the Wolves. Let's see if it'll change up their fate as they bypass the secondary basement play and head upstairs onto the second floor for an early second attempt here.
Soniqs' attack last time had a lot of emphasis on smokes, candelas, and patience. I want to see if Wolves will take advantage of that. Of course, they have to be careful that, especially moving down that long elevator hallway, to not open themselves up to players like Grixer holding the main lobby rappel, or inside a janitor, Rexon holding that CEO rappel. But Soniqs are also shifting things up. At the 11th hour, a lot of operator changes. Instead of the Ying and the Brava, we've got an Amaru, a Monty, but Rexon sticking that Zofia once again. So a lot of these players, Rexon and Grixer specifically, I imagine will hold the same positions as they did before. On the rappels, outside of main lobby and CEO. But with the Monty, that indicates one thing in my mind. When you're attacking CEO and you pick that Montaigne, you're walking up the spiral stairs and you're trying to collide straight into the defense's setup.
Let's see if the Sonics can force the issue. Already nearly did so on the last attempt here, just 2 rounds back. Gunner, of course, immediately on the rappel to start putting some of that pressure inside of the site with the G8 himself. And if he needs to, has the guard hook to try and surprise him a little bit later on in the round, which I see part of him descending now. Actually getting the hook ready, it looks like a second ago there. So let's see if there's going to be an immediate fall through. Oh, big jump from Citizen. He gets scared a bit as well, as there is a response that comes in from the Wolves. Another member of their team tries to swing out and challenge that, but even that player not really ready for the fight, as no bullets come out from them, with it end up kind of awkwardly backing away from each other, as no damage is done to either side there.
Surprised the lack of hard breach denial from the Wolves, denying that Kanto angle would free up their defensive rotations very, very nicely. But because they don't have that, because the sun was now opened up, players like Mowgli got to be careful where they step. They're protected from the square angle, but elevator and the Kanto wall, they really got to stick over by stock, and Citizen might be able to pressure it successfully in the late round. At the moment as well, Geo is now clear to walk up elevator with no one directly to his right. A lot of the angles Sonic needs and a lot of the kills as well now going their way.
Leslie found by Gunner to start, but immediately things turn back into the favor of the Wolves. Grixer will save it though with an equalizing kill. However, he's incredibly detached from the actual execute. It's just Geo and one other member of the team playing onto the inside right now. Even that second member I don't think is entirely with the push from Geo as well, so things are going to slow down to a pretty drastic extent. And now the hop out from P4 grabs Rexon. Perfect time to do it, as well as Grixer just committed himself to the inside, so there's now no room for a trade on that. P4 will be able to head back towards electrical and safely re-enter the building with no consequences for that jump out. Does leave the site a little bit vulnerable, so Geo will take advantage upon that one. Now try to make his initial bid for the plant. Will there be an aggressive response from the Wolves, or are they just going to allow it to happen? Looks like, again, the rotations are not really set up that well for the defenders to work their way back in, so it is going to be allowed to go through. Good positioning from Grixer as well. Immediately grabs Deadshot as he tries to retake some positioning closer towards meeting room there. Geo can, of course, stand directly in the way of the retakes towards areas like Janitor, but now Grixer going to continue to harass things out. His third kill already on the round, doing a beautiful job of making sure this still goes the way of the Sonics when everything is said and done, despite a bit of a rough start to the round. P4 now alone in a very tough situation, given that Geo is going to be standing directly in his way this whole time. He'll have to quickly look for a victory in the duel against Grixer, but already on the losing end of it, it'll be a quad from Grixer as the members of the Sonic continue to give off impressive performances round after round after round. It's an ace, just one round back from Citizen, and now a quad kill on the next from another one of their members.
Sonics have that individual potential in players like Citizen or Grixer, but honestly across the whole squad that makes champions and makes international performers. And they're able to bring back around from a 3v4, not necessarily from the brink of defeat, I will say. There were a lot of very good plays, P4 especially recognizing that if he hops out, the odds are that Sonics will not be able to counter him. There's only one player in that rappel. He makes it work. But Sonics played that 2v3 incredibly well. They realize that Wolves are playing very far back. They've given it up and moved in for a retake. If they can move in and just commit and take that gamble, there's a chance it'll pay off. And when it did and they realized that no one from Wolves was playing aggressively in the site, they somehow made a 2v3 post plant work to their favor.
2v3 with a Monty, mind you, as well, so not necessarily one of the easiest ones to work. Grixer definitely doing a lot of the big lift in there, but obviously Gio's still helping out massively when it comes to the informational department as much as he could. That's one of the main benefits of that shield operator that it brings to the table, so of course he needs to be on point when it comes to that role. Sonics continuing to dominate as far as this initial side is concerned, and this is not the side as well that you necessarily always expect to come out on top of things. It does tend to happen from time to time, though, so it's not entirely uncommon, but a 5-1. That's going to be pushing the limit to a pretty extreme extent as far as my opinion is concerned. The Sonics, see if they can get things done, though, it is going to be another open area hold from the Wolves to try and at least lock down one more for themselves.
Citizen on his flu game arc currently, 8-3, topping the scoreboard. Grixer after that round not far behind. Not trying on the final round of the attack to change things up. You can see Citizen retaking his position inside main lobby. See also a few SQ players moving in through open area as well. They're looking to take the early bit of control on that map, but we need to see some adjustments from Wolves. Deadshot still playing inside of Banana, but as Citizen just sprints up, they don't drone Deadshot in that position, so I suppose not a change up in positioning, but certainly a shift of fortunes. 2 open area rounds now, though, that Wolves have started with the opening pick. Last time it didn't matter because afterwards Citizen just sprinted on into the site. But Wolves are more than ready for it now. Mowgli has angles looking down into at least half of it, and you have other players watching that double barricade to ensure that he can't just walk in a second time. So Sonics will now have to work a lot more for this control, and they'll have to do it at a deficit.
No immediate way to recover things from the loss of the initial player. So an expected follow-up to come through for the Sonics here now as they slow things down to a snail's pace to try and double, if not triple down on their intel game to find a kill like that one there. Nicely picked up by Rexen. He is able to trap out Mowgli, leaving him with no real safe route to recover or fall back from his position just outside of Stock and Janitor. Eliminates him outright. Not even a whole lot of damage returned onto Rexen there too. Took the brunt of it from that fight. With the damage already done to Deadshot, Sonics once again quickly looking to get themselves into a winning position here, but they have to recover Deadshot eventually here. And there we go, the drone eventually spotting him out. Was looking like Gunner may go unnoticed in that regard, or rather Deadshot would go unnoticed to Gunner, but ultimately able to lock him down, and now Rexen just kills him outright as well, with the spam coming through into the CEO office. Nicely done to take him down. With that, Sonics now have the advantage, but time, much like we saw on the initial execute here the first time we played open area, is getting a little bit low, and the Sonics not necessarily near the point of contention to push themselves into the site, but they're not really gonna have a choice pretty soon here.
Now they'll need to open up some more holes, but even in a 3v4, they'll gotta move in quick. Gunner will smoke this angle to drop down now, but the Kiba blocks him, and the entry might just be stopped, but no, Gunner's on point.
Gunner continues to threaten things out here against the Wolves as they remove option after option away from this defensive light. They're gonna try to get out and get aggressive, and it works for both of them. Bibu and Shinka both finding kills, and now with Bibu's second, that may very well just save the round. Rexen responds, but he needs the second pickup, and Shinka's smart, knows he can't play it out. No attempt at even a plant comes through from the Soniqs. They do finally drop another round right at the bitter end of the first half. I think it was a 4-2 scoreline here. 1 win on open area, 1 win on the basement is all we get from the Wolves' defensive half before we switch sides.
We'll say Soniqs attacks have been a little bit slow throughout that attacking half, but Wolves were not able to capitalize on it enough. Soniqs, especially on the players like Deadshot, would get a bit tunnel visioned and sometimes on lockers. This time on open area, he would just sit in a corner of the map, or at least in a position on the map, and Soniqs would really focus on taking him out, and it would spend a lot of time. But to Soniqs' credit, they have been very clutch in the late rounds, and it got them the majority of those attacking rounds, whether it's a late full execute or just a late rush and send it into the bomb site. Soniqs' shots have been hitting today, and it's required overperformance from Wolves in these rounds to win. But now as the side switch, Soniqs have shown that their attacks on Bank are not sloppy. Maybe a little rough around the edges, but certainly solid at the core. Now let's see if the same proves true for their defenses.
Usual sight to start things out for the Soniqs is they will go immediately for the basement. Wolves tended to pick the offsites a little bit more, such as open area. Those tend to be a secondary, tertiary choice for a lot of teams. Not going to be the case here as the Soniqs do return to much more stable territory as far as they are concerned and play into pretty much all the usual benefits of that site as well. Pulse will be brought up by Citizen to play into the depths of gold bars once we reach the bread and butter of the round. Grixer will look to delay the play as much as possible as well, with the Goyo canisters now to be built on top of Gunners. Toxic Babes, of course, which are always in play for that basement defense. We've got the Valkyrie cams to give a little bit more aggressive play capability to the members of the Soniqs still roaming around upstairs. And then, of course, the laser gates to mitigate the additional utility that'll be chucked in by the Wolves deeper into the site. Not actually a whole lot of that to be eaten up, but that'll work even more so into the favor of the Soniqs when you consider they only have those 3 flashes on Bibu to try and get rid of some of that play.
Mowgli making his way into the building very quickly. He sees an early engagement, but he's caught off guard by Citizen mid-mount onto the circle table. It'll also be a breath of fresh air for Citizen. Sometimes the Pulse playing off of the site, not by himself in this case. He did have support close by an open area, but that could be an easy target for an opening pick, and I think Mowgli had the right idea there. But moving in by himself, he's now also cost some useful utility for Wolves, but they accounted for that. Sure, the Selmas are gone, but we have 4 hard breach charges and 2 exothermics. So enough for the hatches and even enough for a wall downstairs. They just have to be careful that they don't lose another body to one of these roamers, be it Citizen the Pulse or Geo the Valkyrie.
It'll go flying across the map after that one. Soniqs not really with any necessary capability to try and get aggressive here, considering they've already asserted the player advantage for themselves. Shinka will pop that one through the floor. Again, unfortunately, won't be finding a whole lot. A little bit more of a nervous pop of that one to try and flush away any remaining presence from the Soniqs. But like I mentioned a few seconds ago, he's long gone. They've already rotated all 5 players back down into the depths of that basement, playing it very much like a basement Oregon site here. They have that little bit of roam presence out and about to start the round off, but once you picked up a kill, just pull it back, because you've already got the advantage. And especially with the Pulse in play for Citizen there is no real reason to extend your luck to try and go for a second or third one here. Wolves realize this finally and are going to start working on their descent.
And now to see what kind of execute they go for. There's no aggressive server stairs presence from the Soniqs, but there's an aggressive server presence. They have the Pulse in gold, and that can influence whoever's playing behind that server stack to go for a peek, or at least call when Deadshot is pushing him so they can either hide or commit to a gunfight. But Geo doesn't even really need to do that right now. With 45 seconds left, he just needs to sit here. The Goyos are popping inside of the site, and as they move in for the clear, the longer he stays alive and the more problems he causes, the more likely it is that Soniqs take round 7.
Big swing from Shinka, finally gets the trade onto Geo, but he's already wasted out quite a few seconds here and picked up another 1-for-1, so no strides made really here for the Wolves in terms of changing up that status quo. Only just now working themselves onto the inside of server room. And look at this, the Toxic Babe starting to flood out as well. That was only the first one. Gunner still has 2 more in the pocket. He can waste this all the way down to 0 timer. Wolves need a secondary angle, and they need it right now. And I'm not sure if they expected this much resistance in terms of utility. A big overstep from the Wolves, if so. And here we go, they're walking right into it. Bibu on the back flank from Gold Bars, though. Might be changing it up, but there's the problem. Their planter walks directly into the utility setup there, blocking the way by server door, and that'll lock in another victory here for the Soniqs.
That's classic Bank right there. Waste time off of the site in the first half and then play the utility on site for the second. All you need to do, because Bank is so large and requires so much time and energy from the attack, you just force them to stall their clear, move through the second floor and the first floor slower than they would like, and then play your life inside of positions like server or inside of garage, and you should be able to win, especially if you have operators like Goyo to waste potentially up to 60 seconds to 80 seconds in the site, depending on how many Vulcan packs they put on that server stairs walk-up. Soniqs have now won Church, and Wolves' attack didn't look too bad. There was just so much utility from the Soniqs and so much time wasted.
Yeah, like you said, just no time remaining there for Wolves to realistically make that work, and they had no secondary angle planned. Props to Bibu for trying to turn it around, gets at least 2 on that flank that he goes for on a kind of heads-up play. But still is not able to work it back for himself. So brings it back under the control of the Soniqs here, because they need only 2 rounds left now to close out this matchup and qualify for the final stage of the tournament.
Could potentially be, depending on how the games go today, the only NA team to do so. Every other North American team currently in an elimination match today, M80, SSG, and Dark Zero. XQ, the only ones in a promotion game right now. So if our region's fortunes, John, aren't looking good today, hey, if Soniqs win 7-2, at least we can hope they lift the trophy by the end of this major. Open area defense, of course, they'll need to worry about to try and move to match point. Wolves starting out with a normal clear. They brought the Flores, they brought that explosive utility to not destroy any of these Kiba barriers, but specifically to destroy some of these frost mats and bulletproof cameras that'll not only watch them if they hop on in, but potentially cause them to look at a different angle as they hop in as well. That will set up for the execute later on. And now, for those Rotero drones used and some of the initial intel gathered, they start to clear out top square.
We will move into electrical to start the carve and cut away some of this defensive presence from the Soniqs, a little bit outside of the site in square. P4 obviously working on opening things up when it comes to the soft breach potential there with the Rotero drones, but not able to have a whole lot of actual insight utility. Not that there's a massive amount of it to be taken down by those, to be fair to you as well. There's the frost mats, maybe a shield or 2, but I'll take a look now and see we actually don't have any of those. However, once again, the initial kill once more goes over towards the Soniqs. That natural extension upstairs to the second floor is going to cut away Deadshot on the Dokkaebi as well. A crucial piece of potential extended clear utility is now no longer going to be available, and he's still causing problems. A second pickup now for Gunnar. Geo tries to make it 3. Mowgli finally is able to put Gunnar down and continues that rampage as well here. A third found from Mowgli as he's getting it all done on his lonesome. Rex in the most recent to fall. Bibu now feels the confidence to go for a plant. Rixer with a potential counter angle, but he knew there was a player on blue stairs. Had to give himself away though in hopes of stopping that planter from going down onto the ground. Does not work out, and now he's put himself between a rock and a hard place here due to the blue stairs player. But that player has backed away. He's waiting for a later portion of this round to spring back out and reactivate. Mowgli, though, will go for the quad. Let's see if he can make it an ace as well to counter what we saw from Citizen just a few rounds back. Nicely done either way from him to open up this site pretty much on his lonesome here. And whether he gets the ace or not, it's more than likely going to be a Wolves round now. And indeed, it will be the ace from Mowgli to match the pace of Citizen. Back on round number 4.
Cold as ice from Mowgli. 2 rounds that Wolves have tried to make a sudden flank on the backside work. Bibu got a very impressive clip, but didn't win the round. This time, Mowgli, his shots were hitting about as well as the IGLs. He's able to make it through the fire into the site. But Wolves, to their credit as well, it wasn't just Mowgli that opened that up. The Monty had worked his way up to cafeteria a lot earlier and was just waiting, gathering intel to call this play for Mowgli to make that a 2v3 and then move into the bomb site afterwards, get the bomb down and close out a very clean open area attack.
Finally going to be seeing that 4th and final site come into play here on round number 9 as the Soniqs complete their set of rotations. They do not, at least initially here, want to play things up onto the second floor. They'll go for the Teller's site, which will obviously once again have the natural extension up to the second floor site itself, with the area surrounding it, places like Janitor, but obviously see the site itself be played back down on the first floor. It might prompt a few changes from the Wolves because of that one, but it's pretty minor in the grand scope of things.
10 seconds to
Just going to see Shinka changing up the hard breach style right now as he goes over to a Thermite. And the IQ is also brought back in to get a little bit of a counter onto Gunnar, who brings the now uncommonly played, or less commonly played, Vigil into the fold for their roam game here.
Role change recently done throughout the LCQ, put Gunnar on a more aggressive entry position. Before playing a lot of Echo on the site, this time moving to the Vigil for ops like Jaeger or Oryx to try and go 1-for-1 early on. That's a risky strategy against Wolves. Mowgli's a very aggressive, and as you just saw, a very skilled fragger. So Soniqs will need to make sure they support any of those roamers, or else giving a 1v1 or a free 1v1 to Mowgli will likely spell destruction for the first half of this round. They have that support. They've got the Valkyrie cameras to give intel and the ERC from the Vigil to deny it. Already some early damage. Who almost an early death. Gunnar put down to 1 HP, not by Mowgli, but by P4 on the Skylight. So now, if Soniqs do want to hold these forward positions, in which they will, they'll need to contest CEO for a good portion of the round because of how much vertical holes it offers. They'll likely need to be with some more support.
Gunnar now forced out of the aggressive part of this game. We'll have to see how he can potentially contribute to the late round situation for himself and the rest of his team. On the Vigil, doesn't really have much of a choice here. He has that much more aggressively leaned operator to begin with. That's part of his role here. His ability obviously becomes much less powerful if he tries to play himself into a corner pocket in the site. So see what he can reckon towards. That low HP is hurting his capability to help out throughout the rest of this round. For the Wolves, though, going to leave them with plenty of an open opportunity to continue moving forward themselves. That's both of Mowgli's nades going to try and take out that bulletproof there. It's not great for the long run of things. They don't have any other nades to back that up, so if they see an opportunity to knock out a player with those nades later on, they unfortunately will not be able to take advantage of it now. Hard ping goes on to at least one of the members holding on the inside of Tellers. Mowgli tries to play on this top angle, just behind the main desk itself to catch that player, but no one from the Soniqs obliges. They're playing a bit more of a passive game right now, but it is going to allow some members of the Wolves to at least set up to start moving forward to shut down this setup outright. Gunnar, though, finds the first kill of the round and knocking down BB.
Another kill found onto Shinka, this time the hard breach, but that wasn't a core element of Wolves' strategy. It seemed to be the kills and to set up Mowgli, but in the 5v3, the Dokkan calls might go out. That'll give Mowgli intel, but players like P4 are getting shut down as well. It's really all on the star player of Wolves, and it seems like he's running out of help.
Deadshot and Mowgli, all that remains here. Deadshot tries to go for initial entry himself, but now Gunnar even jumps back into the fray despite the low HP and the pocket position inside of the elevator. Oftentimes a tough one to counter, but not when he's at that low of an amount of HP. Either way, he's able to eliminate one final player here, leaving it all on to Deadshot now for the 1v5. More than likely in just a moment. Good response from Deadshot there. Finally gets the better of Gunnar, but beyond this, it'll be tough to reckon for another kill. So Citizen is the one to pop up and shut him down. And more importantly than that, a lock-in match point for the Soniqs.
One round away from NA's first representative making it to the main stage. But Wolves have proven, especially in that M80 game, that they are clutch, and they've proven in that SSG game that they can be an overwhelming force. We know the pieces in the play is there. Can they just do it 3 rounds in a row? I think it's possible. Let's look at round number 10 to see if it happens. Soniqs' roam game was very solid, rotating at the right times, but also coordinating at the right times. And it also just helps that the shots were all landing for SQ, and none were landing for Wolves. So we'll need to see a team-wide performance to mount this comeback. Soniqs are going back down to church. The big thing here, Soniqs denied map control for the first half of the round and just denied any form of an execute in the second half.
Wolves struggled tremendously to make this execute work for themselves, mainly due to a lack of time because of how much of it was wasted on the roam clear. And very much we could see the same thing happen here, not just because of the roam strap potentially coming out for the Soniqs, but a new operator, a new wrinkle that's been added into things here as well. They're going to be trying to delay things even further as the clash has now come out for Geo. Also, which obviously plays quite heavily into that sort of delay mentality. So we'll see how the Wolves try to work their way around that. If they find a quick path to dealing with Geo, could be the opposite. We could see Wolves having a much more confident push this time. But it's all going to be found out in the round itself. So let's see what we will get if the Wolves can survive the first of the next 3 rounds, that they need to pick up for themselves to trigger overtime now.
Ooh, real no middle floor pressure from Soniqs. I have to say, this might be a bit of an oversight. Wolves won't really care. They're fine with it. They are completely okay with middle floor control clear. They're also not a team that will just stall out if there is nothing. If they realize that the second and first floor clear, Mowgli will be in that in the first 15, 20 seconds. That's exactly what's happened. So they can start working these hatches, moving on down to the bottom floor. And there is a clash, and that's always something that can throw players off guard. And Gunnar is playing more aggressively on server stairs this time. So it's not like Soniqs are playing as passively as they were before. But they are giving up a whole lot of control for the Wolves, and that'll make their setup and clearing out Gunnar and Geo later on a lot easier.
Relatively quiet beyond that, though. The Soniqs not wanting to show face. It seems they give an opposite philosophy on this round here. Nade goes deep, but it's really only going to clear out the barbed wire down below. Could have been part of the attention. Definitely was kind of hoping they would get a bit more player damage on that one, but it was not part of the cards here, apparently. Once again, those can openers quickly opening up all of the hatch work to try and give them that clean path down into the basement itself. More importantly, all the angles to use in a pre- or post-plant situation here. The Thermite contributing to that as well, but half the round now gone. Good news is still plenty of time, at least in my opinion here.
Oh yeah.
For Wolves to try and make this work due to the lack of any mid or top floor pressure that Carter mentioned a few moments ago. Really relying heavily on Gio's potential delay from that clash to save the day and burn out the rest of the time here. But that assumes Wolves are going to kind of respect the usual state of play on this site and go directly for a server take, which is not going to be happening as Gio has probably now realized, reascending to the top of blue stairs and seeing absolutely no pressure here. You can even see him calling it out now over here on bottom square.
Wolves also lacking some utility to deal with this clash. They've only really been running one set of nades, and Mowgli's down to one. The Ash charges could be used, but one will land on a piece of utility. The Candelas as well now going out. This might signal something from Wolves, this time on the backside.
P4 still going to be able to strike first, though, as Gunnar goes down. Rexen will prompt him for a response, and he nearly is able to get two. There it is. Grixer finishing it off instead against Bimu. Citizen locking out P4. That's NA on their way to the first playoff spot. Unless we can see either Deadshot or Shinka change things around. Deadshot pops that open, is going to block off access to the site from Gio. Works out in the favor of our attackers here, but it's also a little bit of a double-edged sword in play here, too. Deadshot needs to watch out for that garage pressure. He's not going to be able to do it. Citizen with two more frags. Might be struggling on the vocals today, but he's not going to be struggling for playoff contentions. Him and the rest of his team move through as the first team from North America to qualify for the final phase of the major.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression is all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression is all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with a who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bucket. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build them a fortune. I'm flipping the ride. I can't be mixy when iffy the vibe. And 40 on 50 is really the time. Why are you all on my phone like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling.
Welcome back to the Telestarter, as I will explain to you a great strat from Soniqs, which is maybe a strat that we've seen more often. It could be seen as a simple one, but they did execute it very well. Now, we'll be looking at this clip. It doesn't play just yet, but we need to pause it at 0.57 because we'll see a few things that we need to talk about first. Right, Soniqs are setting themselves up. So to execute, we have Shinka playing in the middle of Janitor. He might play a huge part because there is a Ying on the board. They might go for a CEO plant. But unfortunately for him, if we let this clip play a little bit, we'll see that he dies to an angle that was being held from the windows right here. But if you look at the side setup for Soniqs, they're setting themselves up for these really good angles. We see geometrics moving up to square. And if we pause the clip right here, I'll explain to you what kind of angles are being held. We have two players on the side of square holding the angles here. We have players on the windows holding down towards the side and not visible on screen. But we do also have a player rappelling from the Kanto windows, holding a line of sight to B4 that's sitting on the shield close to Janitor. Now we take those arrows away and we let the clip play further just a little bit because we're gonna see something very funky here. Right, can we pause it right now? And I want you guys to look at Gunnar, because my man, I will zoom in on him just a little bit to let you see where he is. When we let this clip play, look at Gunnar. My man is on a mission. He will be crawling past the windows to get in position for side. P4 feels the need to move up, gets shot from the windows on the side of Kento. Gunnar is in the middle of the smoke. Where's your warden? He's dead. They can pull off the plant. All angles are being covered. Deadshot has nowhere to go because there's players on the side of square, players in janitor, and on the windows. And Soniqs get this plant off super, super well. Now, I believe the planter is standing with Janiro for an interview.
Yeah, that's right. We have the planter here, and it's Gunnar. I'm gonna start off by saying, honestly, like I don't even have notes on what to ask for an interview, so we're just gonna do this super casual because congratulations, you're through on phase 3. This is like your 3rd time on the interview desk.
Yeah, no, love it up here. It's my job.
How does it feel to win?
Feels great. We, especially on that map of all maps, we took a gamble, and it just goes to show that our work's been paying off.
Okay, so speaking about that map, Bank, I know Jesse, who's standing over there grinning, was like, what is going on? So what happened with Bank? Why did you guys let it through?
Well, I mean, we're at a major, and we can't just keep playing the same maps over and over again.
Yeah.
So we've been, working on that map in the shadows, but we thought today was the day to bring it out. We liked what we saw when we watched their VOD. We thought we would destroy it,
Okay.
which we did.
Yeah, well, I guess you guys really looked into the future with that one because that was a pretty one-sided game. You're now qualified for phase 3, which also means that some pretty big names are going to be joining you up there. You have a live crowd. Are you excited?
I'm so excited. I haven't played in a crowd since Yonkaping, so.
Oh, wow. It's been a while since then. Do you think being with the crowd, having, the cheers might affect you to some degree?
I thought it would have, but once those headphones, you can't hear anything. They
Okay.
squeeze your skull.
Does it help with your gameplay?
No, it hurts.
Make a note of that. Okay, well, I think we've kind of discussed a lot of things over the last couple of phases, and I want to say that I'm very proud from how far you guys came, and I hope you guys are proud of yourselves as well.
Thank you.
So before I close it out, would you like to say anything to the doubters? Because you guys came through LCQ.
I don't know. People hate us, but we're working, man.
Yeah,
so we're just gonna keep working.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let that hate be fuel for phase 3. Thank you so much for the interview, and
Thank you.
see you around. That's pretty nice. Yeah, they seem pretty happy. They should be happy. That was a really dominant performance. I think let's start off specifically with the fact that there were 2 aces in one game.
Right? I like those aces. 2 aces on the exact same bomb site. We saw, of course, Citizen getting his first, Mowgli following him up, not to be outdone. What I thought was really impressive by those 2 plays as well was just how important support players were to those pushes. Both Citizen and Mowgli hit ridiculous shots, but if you focus, here's the ace now, you focus on what Gio's doing, he's droning for his teammate. He's being a distraction. He's even jumping in and letting his teammate trade. He's getting the down so that Citizen can get he's getting the finish off of Citizen's down. They're working together, and I really appreciate that in the big plays. Even when it looks like a massive individualistic play, the whole team is helping out. They're funneling kills to this one player, and it looks so, so beautiful. Mowgli as well had the Montaigne helping him out. He had some drone work coming in from P4. So all in all, love that teamwork, even in the individual rounds.
Exactly, yeah. You said teamwork coming out and the whole team showing up is more like that on the side of Soniqs. They had more players stepping up, more players equaling out score lines. On the side of Wolves, there were some players that were really important. Mowgli had that super important flank in that first round, had that ace indeed, as you mentioned as well. But then I think on the side of Wolves, there were some players as well really costing that game.
Okay, well, when we're looking at Wolves, I think one of the things that we highlighted throughout was the inconsistency that we've seen from them in their performances, not just today, but over the last couple of games.
Yeah, they had struggles against Virtus Pro. They then turned around 7-0 SSG. And now, again, here, they seem to be struggling against a team like Soniqs. A good team that wants to play in those finals in front of a crowd needs to make sure that they are consistent and can't be relying on, hey, we're having a good day today, so we'll win. And then, we'll see what happens tomorrow. It might be a worse game.
Yeah, Wolves as a team are often very structured, and I would say reliant on Mowgli as a player. He's always that first one in. He's got one of the highest entry participation percentages of any team. or here at the events. So it was tough to see him not having the worst day, but still going negative for the majority of that match before the ace. I believe he was 4 and 6 coming through here. And that meant that players like P4 and Shinka, who are kind of more backline players who want to be supporting their front guy, just aren't really able to have the best of days. 2 and 10 looks kind of bad for P4. But a lot of rounds, he was just not in a good position because his usual entries, who are typically getting a lot of value in that early round, weren't really hitting their same shots.
Yeah, when we're looking at Gio, however, one of the players for Soniqs, it does feel like they're on their A game.
Yeah, I mean, Gio at the bottom, 4 and 4, but you really can't understate the impact he had on this team. I thought it was interesting how there were oftentimes this game giving the kit to other players. Grisher took the diffuse kit quite often, and Gio was actually playing a lot of what I would consider to be like Rexton roles, right? He was playing a lot of Twitch, a lot of this Brava as well, these drone operators, which I think are typically associated with Rex, and he loves to play these types of ops. Gio was rocking, and he was doing a great job. You look at the Twitch play, and I believe round number 2, really early on in that game, the Brava being utilized as well, coming through here was really, really nice to see from Gio. So despite the low stat line there, only 4 and 4, I thought he had a massive game today. I thought he played very well.
All right, well, if you guys are sad about the fact that you've seen one EU team lose already today, don't worry, because we got another one coming up. It's G2 up against VersusPro, which means that mathematically EU is unfortunately going to take another L. We'll be back after the break.